Saturday morning of one of the best sports weekends of the year. The NFL playoffs division round starts today. Look who's in the house, John Lund. We're going to have a great stream. We're talking NFL playoffs. We're talking Brock Purdy. We're talking Steph Curry. We're talking Roki Sasaki. What the hell? Let's go. All right, welcome to the Krueger Show, bright and early on a Saturday morning, 9:04 West Coast. That means it's 4 minutes after noon back east. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the NFL divisional round of playoffs, which get going a little bit later on today with my money on the line. That's my degenerate gambler way of saying I'll be betting all these games. So I want your betting advice as well in the chat. But welcome to the Krueger Show. Of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. And if you're watching in like Ohio right now, you're like, where the hell is that? It's in Northern California, right near San Francisco. If you're in Northern California, stop by, go to Pig and a Pickle and get the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners, Sports Cards and Collectibles along the Monterey Peninsula, 205 Cypress Avenue. Down in Pacific Grove, my good friend Anthony Catania can be reached at 831-521-5264 for all your sports cards and collectible needs. And as you see above John's head, today's stream is brought to you by Mancini's Sleep World. Mancini's offers a 120-night guarantee with a range of brands and price points. With Mancini's, you get free next-day delivery. I love my Mancini's bed. All you got to do is click the link below or go to their website, sleepworld.com, and find a bed that works for you, whether you shop online or visit in store. If you know me, you get 10% off. Krug 10. KRUEG 10 is the code you got to use when you check out. You get 10% off. Once again, Krug 10, KRUEG 10, and you'll get 10% off your mattress purchase in any Mancini store or online at sleepworld.com. All right, that was a mouthful. Welcome to our Saturday morning stream. Very excited. Good friend John Lund is in the house. He's got his YouTube channel up and rolling. Johnny, why don't we start there, man? How's the YouTube channel going? And let's give everybody in here. Let's give John a like and a subscribe, and let's help build his channel up as much as we possibly can. How's it going so far?
Yeah, it's amazing. You learn more every day, and I learned a lot from you. And I'm using a new program that you use. So yeah, it's been absolutely incredible, and we're just learning more by the day, and it's awesome. By the way, to give Mancini's another plug. My bed is from Mancini's. There's that one right in Walnut Creek, right on Main Street, and that's where we got our bed when we moved a few years ago. So, yeah, absolutely. But, yeah, the John Lund Unleashed channel, if you give it a like, a subscribe, all those kind of things, and we're everywhere you are, all the social media channels, all those kind of things. We stream all over the place. So, just like you, but you started the whole revolution. So, very, very cool, man, and I appreciate the plug.
Well, man, I mean, and anybody who's going to stumble into John's content is going to quickly realize, wow, this guy's good. Yeah, well, this isn't John's first rodeo. Even though he looks young, he's been doing it a while. Let's start with the playoff games this weekend. Mm-hmm. Before we get into the predictions, let's talk about the Brock Purdy angle, because there's an awful lot of people, the biggest question in 49er land, as you know and I know and everybody in the chat knows, is what is Brock Purdy's contract going to look like? That is the big question. It really is. It's not just a vanity question either. It's a very functional question, because this is the biggest contract on their entire roster. It will severely and dramatically impact how they build the roster around him. It's not just, it doesn't matter. Oh, well, it's in the stars. It's in the numbers. No, if you pay this guy $45 million, you're going to have a whole lot more money to spend on the rest of your roster than if you pay him $75 million. And yet there's a market, and Dak Prescott is at the top of it at $60 million. Not that you have to pay Brock that, but this is an awkward negotiation because there's no natural starting point. His agent could say, I want 65 and not a penny less. Prague could come back and say, we're offering 30 and not a penny more. And you could wind up at an old-fashioned impasse. Now, I've heard your old partner, Greg Papa, with Tim Ryan, suggesting that, man, the Niners would really love to get Brock, right around $45 million or north of $45 million. Yeah, Yeah, I'm sure they would. But I also have had consultation with his agent, and I get a feeling that that's pie in the sky and not going to happen. So, John, I guess I'll throw it to you. If do you see a smooth negotiation with Purdy? We'll start there. Or do you see two sides that could be strident in their position? Could you see Parag and Kyle Strong and Brock's agent being, maybe as much as 25 or $30 million of AAV away from each other's offers? What do you envision?
Well, it's hard and it's complicated because okay, you might be able to come to an AAV, which is it's not 45 because Trevor Lawrence is making 55 and Tua is making 52, and it's pretty easy. And Jordan Love is making over 50, so that's the ballpark he's in. So there's no way you're getting him for 45. But then there's so much more things that are complicated. How much is guaranteed? How quickly to get the money? Parag Marathe has got to play this shell game, and David Lombardi did this the other day, and he's pretty good with the numbers. He had basically the first year cap number being 15, then 23, then 29, and then it jumps to the third, fourth, and fifth year, like $78 million. But as crazy as that sounds, remember, how long ago was it that Jimmy Garoppolo made $25 million and Derek Carr made $25 million and they were at the top? Well, that was only like, 2018, 2009, in that range. So we've doubled that number in 5 years. We might go up to 75 or 78 and think it's nothing in the next 5 years. So AAV is a massive part of it because that's the ego part of it for the agent. But then it's all these other things that you have to worry about. How much is guaranteed? How quickly to get the money? Front loaded, back loaded, all these kind of things. Those are going to be the complications. And although Brock has said the right things and saying that he wants to get it done quickly, and the Niners have said, John Lynch said at the press conference you were at, he wants to get things done quickly. What's the history of the 49ers? July, August, September. That's when Kittle got done, Warner got done, Bosa got done in September, Ayuk got done late, Trent Williams held out. So everybody can say nice things in kumbaya, but it's not only that the deal gets done, it has to get done early, Krug. You know this.
Yeah, it does.
You got to throw with Ayuk. You got to throw with Pearsall. You got to get back on the same page with these guys. And his agent, it's not about Brock. People have to remember this. It's about the agent. The agent wants the most money because he's got to get other clients. And if he gets lowballed at 45 million AAV, who's going to want to sign with him? So the agent is a major part of this. Even though the player works for the agent, it's like a Scott Boras situation. You're not going to take 45 AAV. I will not allow it. The NFL Players Union gets allowed. Whoa, it gets involved. Whoa. You're the top quarterback this year. You can't take less because it's the guys behind you that have to get more. So even if Brock wanted to get in there in a quick way and all these kind of things, as weird as it sounds, it's not always up to the player. He's got to be beholden to the Players Union, to the guys behind him, his agent. It's like, whoa, you're lowballing me. Now I'm not going to get any other players. So it's a really complicated situation, but also the difference between those guys that have gotten deals done in a not like Ayuk, the timing was not great. Brock's got to get this done early so that they can start throwing together because, as you know, it's just weird how they keep the players away and you can't go to the facility. You can't do this and you can't do that. He's different than the rest of the guys. He's leading the team. So everybody's watching that. And then here's the other thing. You want to get Hufanga done? You want to get Dre Greenlaw done? Any of these guys? You want to participate at all in free agency? The base of the house is Brock. So you can't make any of these signings until Brock Purdy's done because he's going to take up so much money. You can't say we're getting Hufanga done first because then you've taken some money. It's really complicated beyond just can the Niners and Brock get to an AAV that is acceptable, because the AAV to me is simple. It starts at around 55, no less, and it only goes up from there.
No question. I mean, I any way you slice this, it's not about, first of all, I think everybody's got to take a breath for a second. Okay. Take a breath and realize that these quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo at one point was the highest paid quarterback in the league. And this is kind of how this thing works, but the cap keeps going up. And over time, these contracts look more palatable over time. The numbers keep going up. So I think there's going to be initial sticker shock on this Brock contract, but I think there will be some protections that cover the club. But here's the thing. I mean, this is why it's so crucial, is that I'm looking at 49er Web Zone right now. I might as well share the screen and you can see this. And this is an article that they have up right now. And it's basically after the 49ers sign Brock, who's going to have to be lopped off? Who's going to be a cap casualty? And they're saying salary cap resource overthecap.com recently published a list of 100 NFL players who might become cap casualties with their teams parting ways with them to free up salary space. 6 49ers are on this list. Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd, Yatir Gross-Matos, Jawan Jennings, Kyle Juszczyk, and Deebo Samuel. I don't love looking at this list. Why? Because these are kind of like a little subsection of the Niners roster. In a lot of ways, these are some very key players on the team. Collins, Floyd, really all these guys you could point to at one point or another outside of Jennings and Gross-Matos and say they're starters. But even Gross-Matos has started and Jennings has started. So you're looking at like 6 starters. 3 on defense, 3 on offense.
I'd focus on the bottom 3. First of all, Jawan Jennings is not going anywhere. They love him. He sets a tone. Jawan Jennings is not going anywhere. And they signed him to a short-term deal as a restricted free agent, and he's going to get paid at some point in the next couple of years. This is why not only is Brock's contract important, it's important how they structure it. And you basically have to have certain guys front-loaded, certain guys back-loaded. It's like a chess game that Prague has got to figure out, but he's good at it. But you've said this before. Juszczyk's just not utilized enough to justify the money that he's making. So he's not going to be around. He already had a pay cut last year, so I don't expect Juszczyk to be on this team. I had Matt Mayoko on this week, and we debated Deebo Samuel. I just don't see it. I don't see how you can pay Deebo Samuel $24 million this year when, to me, he's your 4th best wide receiver. Ricky Pearsall is going to play in the slot. Brandon Ayuk's going to come back. You just signed him. He's not going anywhere. And Jawan Jennings, they love Jawan Jennings and the tone that he sets. And if not being kicked out, that was stupid that they kicked him out of that last game against Arizona. He's a 1,000-yard receiver, and he can get open with his size, not with his speed. He high points the ball. He blocks like hell. They love him, so he's not going anywhere.
He's got guaranteed money, by the way. Right. If you look at this article, $1.17 million guaranteed in 2025. The only guy with these 6 guaranteed.
Yeah, I think Deebo and Juice are probably gone. And that's the way it's going to go. And like you said, they're going to have to do some of these things, even if they'll have a shockingly low number in the first couple of years. If Lombardi is even remotely correct, he went 15-1, about 23, and then 29, which are all fair numbers for a quarterback. But then it jumps to 74. But I think that the thought there is like you just said, we've gone from 25 as the highest paid quarterback to over 60 now with Dak Prescott. That's since 2018. So in a 6-year period, it's gone from 25 to 65. Now, I don't expect it to jump that much in the next 6 years, but 74 may not be as crazy as it sounds today in 4 or 5 years. Brock's getting that money. I mean, I'm looking over the comments and people are saying, oh, like 55 is crazy. It's not. He's not taking less than Jordan Love. He's not taking less than Trevor Lawrence. He's not taking less than Tua. That's the number. And people have got to remember, and we drill this in their head, Krug, you don't have to be the best. You have to be the latest. Good quarterbacks get paid great. That's the position because there's not enough. It's a basic leverage equation. That's why, I didn't love the Ayuk signing because there's a bunch of receivers that come in every single year. You had the leverage over Brandon Ayuk. And if he wanted $30 million, then you should have traded him. But the quarterback position, Krug, so we're looking at the playoffs, right? There's Josh Allen, there's Lamar Jackson, there's Patrick Mahomes. Those are the great quarterbacks that can carry you. Those guys deserve to be paid. But then after that, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, whether it's Stafford or whatever direction you want to go with your quarterback. There's 3 elite ones. There's maybe 5 really good ones. And then beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And that's where Brock is. But he's the latest. And he's not taking less than $55 million on an AAV. It's not going to happen because he's going to look at Tua and say, I'm better. He's going to look at Trevor Lawrence and say, I'm better. He's going to look at Jordan Love, especially the way Jordan Love's been playing. He's better. There's not even a debate. It's not whether he's worth it. His contract is up now, and that's what the market bears.
Herbert makes $52.4 million.
Right.
Herbert is 1 or 2 games over 500. Herbert has never won an AFC championship game. He has never been to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, this is Brock's reality. And whether he backslid or not this year, and he did backslide this year, there's no question. But if I didn't look at that as there's a lot of Niner fans who just have a lot of scar tissue. And I do understand. If all you watch is the Niners, You watch Kaepernick go from Super Bowl Sunday to out of the league in a New York minute. You watch Garoppolo go from Super Bowl starting quarterback to he can't even hang with the Raiders to he's the backup. Very, very quickly. So if your scope is narrow and you're just like Mr. Niner fan and you like, well, Cap, I loved Cap. I bought the jersey. He betrayed me. I loved Jimmy. I bought the jersey. I was not rewarded for my confidence. I can't believe in Brock Purdy because clock's going to strike midnight and he's going to go back to, whatever. He's had a lot of success. Yes, he was like 18-4 up until the Ravens game and has not been as good since. But the Niners haven't been as good since. And I think a lot of his regression this year could be directly tied to CMC, Ayuk, and Debo's individual regression as his receiving core. So, but we don't know where it's going, and we don't know exactly how strident the sides are, and we don't know how realistic the Niners are. I believe the Niners, John, when they say they want to get it done quick. I believe Brock when he says he wants to get it done quick. I believe you when you say there's no way in hell the Niners want to have this drag out or have it be any kind of a holdout situation. But let's just say this number does get to, I agree with you that 50 to 55 million should be basically the sweet spot. But let's just say that Kyle Strongen is like 68 million and we're not moving. And it's just one of those things. He's not showing up. 68 million. What do you do? What do you do? Because I will say this. This is the first time in history. I mean, I've been following the NFL for years. I can't remember an offseason where there were this many seemingly capable quarterbacks that are going to be available. Now, here's the list, okay? These are guys that are available this offseason most likely. Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Drew Lock, Marcus Mariota, Trey Lance, Joe Flacco, Mac Jones, Carson Wentz, Teddy Bridgewater, Jacoby Brissett, Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, possibly Kirk Cousins, possibly Aaron Rodgers, and there's probably a few others. And then, of course, if you wound up in the draft, you could go after a Cam Ward. I guess he would be an option if you thought Cam Ward was a star.
You should trade 3 first-round picks for him.
Well, here's the other one. I mean, there was a website here, 49ers and NFL News, who said, "Hey, how about trade Brock Purdy for the first pick overall?" And when I first saw it, I laughed. But then I thought to myself, you know what? We don't know. We don't even know who Tennessee just picked their GM, I think, yesterday. They could get cold feet on a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders and say, "Hey, we'll take the sure thing."
Let me ask you this, because you and I think have had this discussion, but I certainly know I have, which is if you look at, I don't have the draft order in front of me. I should do this before I say it. But the Jets, I think, are 7. New Orleans is 9. I think something like that. If I'm one of those teams, and people forget this because we become so enamored with the draft is 50-50 in the first round. Right? Go back and look at the quarterbacks drafted, like the Trey Lance draft. Trevor Lawrence, I thought, was going to be a superstar. He's not. Wilson was the second pick based on a season that basically had a big veteran offensive line, and he wasn't very good. Oh, there you go. Then Trey Lance was picked 3rd. Mac Jones was 15th. I mean, they all bombed. So the first round is 50-50 as it is, and then it just goes down from there. So my point is this, all right, Tennessee's going to take a quarterback at 1. Probably Cleveland takes Shedeur unless the Giants give them a great big offer and they move up to number 2. But then Abdul Carter, I like him. But let's start looking at teams that need a quarterback but aren't in a position to, at least rookies. The Raiders at 6, they're not going to trade with the Niners. They hate each other. But 7, if you're the Jets, would you pick, would you trade 7 for Brock? Yes. If you were New Orleans at 9, Derek Carr stinks. Would you trade 9 for Brock Purdy? Yes. Because what's happening here is that I don't know if Cam Ward's going to be any good. I didn't hear all this hype on Cam Ward when he was a quarterback at Washington State as the number 1 pick. He was like a mid-rounder. Shedeur Sanders, I don't want to be in the Shedeur Sanders business. So if I'm a team and I like the Jets need to win now, their fan base has had it. Brock Purdy for 7, and then you turn around and sign Sam Darnold for, I don't know. Sam Darnold's not going to be cheap. People are saying the Baker Mayfield contract at 3 and 100. I think it's going to be more like he's going to probably get 40 or 35. I think he's going to be something like, 4, and still it's going to be a lot cheaper than Brock. I mean, you want to pay 40 for a quarterback, 35 for a quarterback, you might be able to get Sam Darnold.
Would that be your first choice? I mean, like let's just say the Niners and Purdy got to an impasse, and you could get a pick. You could get a pick for Purdy.
7 or
whether
9.
it was the first pick or the Raiders pick at 6, or you got to remember this. It's going to be Ben Johnson, so it's Ben Johnson, whatever he likes.
I bet he likes Brock Purdy because again, I'd rather have the known. I mean, look, Brock is not going to be a superstar quarterback. He's solid if he has solid guys around him. But as you said, he's getting a bad rap. I think he's going to bounce back personally because of what you just said. He tried to do too much. It was obvious. He tried to put too much on his shoulder, tried to make too many throws he couldn't make. He just, that's not him. He's got to play within the context of that offense. He's got to use his head. Don't turn the ball over. Don't take too many risks. He got out of whack because he thought that he had to put too much on his shoulders. I really believe that. So when he comes back next year, new mindset. I'm not saying he's going to be the best quarterback in the league, but he's probably a top 10er when he's right. So you're telling me the Jets at 7, who have had so many quarterback issues, are going to delve back into, like, Sam Darnold's not going to the Jets. Are you kidding me? He's not going back to New York. So they don't have an opportunity to get Darnold. What are the Jets going to do? So they sit there at 7, and the Niners call him and say, hey, you can have Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is probably better than Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I don't know that, but as we well know, all these guys get drafted in the first round, and everybody's excited and hyped up, and then all of a sudden the guy plays, and it's like, whoa. Like Jaden Daniels is a really nice player, but he's not a finished product. They're going to sit there at the NFC, and especially the NFC East, is going to sit the entire offseason and say, how do we stop this guy? Well, you know what you do? He's thin. You hit him, and you hit him, and you hit him. That's going to be the thing against him. Is he RG3 or is he legit? So you don't even know after a year if a guy's really, really good. And then, like I said, you go back to the Trey Lance draft. The first 3 picks, Lawrence, he's not great. Zach Wilson is on his second team. He's not showing anything. You know who the guy that I think is going to be the next reclamation project? And I'm not saying he starts for the Niners next year, but it's Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones.
It's funny you'd say that.
Pick. He's got great skill. He's got athleticism. He was in New York. Where was Sam Darnold? He was in New York. Where was Geno Smith? He was in New York. That city and that market zaps your confidence. And a lot of times it takes you a couple of years to get away from it. But Daniel Jones he was the 6th overall pick. He has everything you need. His confidence was just zapped. That, he made so much money. They talked about it constantly. I think he needs a year in Kyle's system like Darnold, and he might be a productive quarterback. And that's the way the league is going, is rather than take the chance on a guy who's a good quarterback getting paid great, I think teams are looking for the next Sam Darnold. And I think Daniel Jones is a great prospect for that.
It's funny. It's like, this is such a volatile thing, right? Because you're talking about your starting quarterback. You're either going to have Brock Purdy, or Brock Purdy's going to price himself out and you're going to move in a different direction. But for the first time in years, there's options. There's old options. If you want to, hey, you know what? We got 1 year. We got to win this year. Okay, fine. Go get Kirk Cousins. Go get Aaron Rodgers. Go get Russell Wilson. Right? We got to do it right now. Okay. But if you said, well, you know what, we want a young quarterback, we just don't want to pay Brock, $60 million, and his agent's demanding $68 million. We don't want to pay that, and we got a team that's willing to give us a first-round pick for Brock, and we're looking at some of these other quarterbacks. Here's a name that is not going to make you go, wow, I really like this guy. I'm going to share the screen on this one. I won't even say it. I'll just share the screen.
Are people going to get angry?
People are going to get angry. Anger coming right now.
What do you got? Oh!
I got
Drew. Back up at Seattle. It wasn't terrible.
I got Drew Lock. Okay, let's talk Drew Lock for a second. 6'4", 228 pounds. Big arm. 28 years old. Second round pick in the 19 draft. 42 overall. By Denver, out of Missouri. Didn't play. Floated around.
People are angry, Krug. People are angry.
I know. Denver, Seattle, New York Giants. But let's just take a look at what he did in this season. Look at this last game against Philly. 22 of the Phillies, the number one defense in football. They lose 20-13. He was 22 of 29. It's pretty good completion percentage. 138 is not great. One touchdown, one pick. Let's go the previous week, December 29th against Indy. 17 of 23 for 309 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 rushing. He had 5 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, it's one game. It's one game, but it's Indianapolis. They put up 45 points against the Colts defense. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying this guy's great by any stretch, but this guy's got a big arm. I like him. I like him a lot. To me, I like Drew Lock better than some of those other options. I mean, is he awesome? No, but you know what? He's got plenty of NFL arm. He's had some experience. He seems to be getting a little bit better. All I'll say is, for all of you going, Krug, no, blah 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 blah. Okay, fine. Be honest with yourself. If I had said this 2 years ago, if I had said Baker Mayfield, would you have said, yes, Baker Mayfield's going to find himself. He's going to be great. Heck, that was 2 years ago. If 10 months ago I said, Sam Darnold, go with Darnold, trade Purdy.
Believe me, I would have been.
You guys would all be like,
way.
no. Oh my God. People lost their mind when Kyle Shanahan put Sam Darnold in front of Trey Lance on a training camp preseason depth chart. They would lose their S if I said go with Darnold. But Darnold just had a 14-2 or 13-4 or whatever. He didn't look good the last couple of weeks.
Right.
So as far as recency bias, people would say no. But then there's, what if Kyle saw traits that he liked in Mac Jones? What if Kyle saw traits that he liked in Zach Wilson? I was talking to Chase Sr. the other day. He really believes they ought to go for Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, I think, is going to have a good career. I've said that consistently. It hasn't started well, but doesn't mean it's not going to finish well. All I'm saying is, I guess if I was Kyle Shanahan, if I'm John Lynch, John, before I make my decision with Brock, I got to know what's my timeline here. Do I have a year to make it happen? Do I have 2 years? What exactly am I working with here as far as a timeline? Because if I have 2 years to make it happen, I'm not going to trade Brock Purdy and draft Cam Ward and restart with the rookie. I'm probably going to bring in Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or some veteran quarterback, or stay with Purdy. But we're talking about an impasse situation. Where Brock wants, there's a lot of people over here going, no, Drew Lock, no, this guy, no, that guy. Screw you and your nose, okay? All I would say is, don't tell me who's not going to be the quarterback. Make an argument for who is.
Yeah.
So let's start there. Instead of making fun of my choice for plan B, let's hear your choice for plan B. Because we can all play this laugh game. But once again, if we're being honest, we would have laughed at Darnold a year ago. We would have laughed at Baker 2 years ago. And those guys reclaimed their career. And some of these other guys, I don't know if it's Trey Lance, Darnold, Wilson, Locke, Fields, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones. I guarantee you, one of those guys is going to reclaim their career, establish themselves as a top tier or at least a second tier quarterback that you can win with. And we're going to look back in a year if they pay Brock $65 million and go, they should have gotten blank. And it's going to be one of those young guys probably.
Well, I think if you look at, and again, let's reiterate something here. What you're talking about is if they get to an impasse, and it's certainly potentially that way. It could be that way because the 49ers over the last couple of years have gotten to an impasse. So it's not only can you get the deal done, but they've got to get the deal done quickly, like we've said. But if there just was, based on your premise, they had to pivot somewhere and decided, you know what, the Jets at 7, New Orleans at 9, we've got offensive line and defensive line issues. Let's make sure we do this. And let's also go back to, you were in the press conference. They addressed Dre Greenlaw. They addressed Hargrave. They addressed Debo. But when it came to Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan lapdogged all over him. And I mean, he licked his face and he kissed him, and he did, like, it was just like, he is staying. So they want him badly.
They love him. They're trying. And I got to think, John, that they wouldn't have gone there with such, we love this guy, unless they had traded some numbers with Kyle Strong and have a pretty good idea of where it's going.
Yeah. So first of all, they want him. That's not an act. There's certain guys where they say certain things, and it's still not going to work out. But that was genuine. All right. In the middle of lying season, the way Kyle addressed Brock to the media was 100% genuine. But based on your premise of if they were going to have to pivot, first and foremost, it's Kirk Cousins. And people can scream and they can yell and they can say that's stupid and all those things, but he's had an obsession over Kirk Cousins forever. And Michael Penix Jr. is going to be the quarterback of the Falcons next year. There's just no question about it. So first of all, if you were doing a pecking order, it's easily Kirk Cousins number one. And then what I would do to ensure myself against an injury that is potentially going to happen. And remember, I'm not a huge Kirk Cousins guy, but he's playing off an Achilles. So this wasn't going to be his best year anyway. He's coming off a major Achilles injury. He still can't move if you watch any of the games. So he would probably also not only be Kyle's favorite, but probably the best guy. And then
what would he make? What would he make, you think?
Well, I think that what they'd have to do, the Falcons would have to eat a ton of that contract. Have to look back at the money. They're going to have to eat a ton. But you know what? It's kind of like the Russell Wilson situation. The NFL more and more, when I hear people say, well, for example, on Debo, like they wouldn't eat that. The Broncos ate $50 million plus on Russell Wilson. They made the playoffs. So sometimes it's addition by subtraction. Teams have no problem anymore eating the contract money because it keeps going up. The number keeps going up and up and up as far as the salary cap. So they could eat and will eat Debo's number. But as far as Cousins, I think he'd be one. And then you just nailed it right in the head. In sports, what you have to do is have to look at connections. He liked Mac Jones coming out. I'm not a Mac Jones guy, but they were going to draft Mac Jones. We all know that. And then at the last minute, he pivoted to Trey Lance. We all know that kind of stuff. So it probably is going to be a Mac Jones. It could be a Daniel Jones. I don't know that relationship, but I do know. And like you said, they like Zach Wilson. I'm not a Zach Wilson guy. If people go back and look at his senior year at BYU, it was a veteran offensive line. He never had any pressure, and he scrambled around and played backyard football against a schedule that was horrendous. And that's how he won. And then you go to these, you go to the QB day, they have the quarterback day, and it's completely situated. And I think it was Jordan Palmer who did this one, where it's all his strengths, and he's throwing the ball down the field, and everybody oohs and ahs, and then they draft the guy. They get enamored with this whole thing. So look, maybe he's going to be great. But I think if they had to pivot, it's clearly Kirk Cousins, followed by somebody that, like he did with Darnold, somebody that he might be able to mold for the future, because who knows if Darnold or that Cousins can stay healthy. And then to your point as well, whether it's Tanner Mordecai or whether it's somebody they draft, there's a bunch of mid-rounders. I know you like Riley Leonard. Like, it's a bunch of mid-rounders. I wouldn't be surprised if they had to pivot, if it went Cousins, reclamation project, rookie. That's how they would probably do it.
Okay, we, of course, are brought to you by Mancini's, and thanks to John. John's hanging out. We're only going to do another 10 minutes or so. Johnny's going to have to run, but let's hit some playoff action here today. What are you thinking today and some of these playoff games? I think it's a dog's barking kind of a day. But you know what? Or weekend, I should say. I kind of, my first blush was give me Texans, Commanders, Rams, and Bills. Give me all of the underdogs this weekend with the points. But now here we are. It's game day. I love the Texans because of those two corners. I love Kamari Lassiter, and I love Stingley Jr. He's just amazing. They have two amazing corners, and I just think if I had to say something today, I would say I like the Chiefs on the teaser, for a short number, but I don't know if they're going to cover that 9.5. I think my bet on this first game is going to be Chiefs on the teaser. So Chiefs, let's say -2 or 3, and then tease it up and go under. Because I think the Texans defense is going to be good. I think the Chiefs defense is going to be good. And it's 20 degrees there, and Stroud's a California kid. I like the under. I like teasing it up to like 48, 49 and going under. And I like teasing the Chiefs down to, -2 or -3 and playing a parlay. What do you think? Texans Chiefs, what do you see?
First of all, I think it's a great call, because if you look the Chiefs, and I don't know if their luck runs out. Like Minnesota a couple of years ago, they were winning all these one-score games, got in the playoffs, got knocked out. The Chiefs have been winning a ton of one-score games. They're led by their defense. Mahomes hasn't had a great year by his standards, but at the last minute, as we know all too well around here, he makes a play and they win. So I think that game is actually going to be close. And then as far as the Commanders and Lions today, I think the Lions are going to blow the hell out of the Commanders. It's the Commanders. It's great that they got to this point. The having worked for the Lions and at Ford Field, those people are so starved. It's going to be the loudest place. I don't care about Kansas City, Seattle. Those are open air stadiums. It's going to be insane in that building. And I like Jaden Daniels. I like Washington. They've had a great year, whatever. They've won a bunch of one-score games. I think it's the end of the line. I think that the Lions are going to be jacked out of their head. I think the fans are going to be crazy. I think the Commanders are going to be intimidated. I think the Lions blow out the Commanders, and I think the Texans keep it close because that's a good football team, and Mahomes is just kind of winning games at the last second. So I think that's a close one. I think Commanders-Lions is a blowout in the two games today.
Here's my plays today. I'm teasing both games. I'm teasing Chiefs to the under, and I'm teasing Commanders, or I'm teasing Lions down, and I'm going over. I'm teasing that 55 down to 40, whatever, 48, something like that, and going over. I like the over in that Commanders-Lions game. I think the Commanders will be able to score against Detroit. I think, but the morning game, I think, is going to be low scoring. Let's jump to Sunday.
Yeah.
So I see high scoring in the afternoon, low scoring in the morning. Tomorrow, do you give the Rams a shot against the Eagles? I mean, the Eagles are 8-1 at home, but the Rams are cooking right now. And that Ram D line looks great. Hurts hasn't looked the same to me all year. Philly's got a killer D led by Vic Fangio. I don't know, though. Stafford and all those veteran weapons. I kind of think if I got to go one way or another here, I'm kind of leaning towards the Rams with the points. I'm still not sure how I'm going to wager on this one. Give me some wisdom on Rams Eagles.
Well, here's the one thing is I'm a little nervous because it's going to be a snow game and the Rams coming from SoFi. Early in the week, I thought, the way the Rams are playing, I'm with you. Jalen Hurts, there's something wrong. He isn't the same. But if I look at this game kind of like when the Niners and Bills played each other, who's going to be able to be that four-wheel drive? Is it going to be Barkley, who's been so good this year? Is it going to be Kyron Williams, who is going to win a snow game, a mutter game, one of those kind of games? Philly is probably better prepared just because I think that they can do some more things, keep the ball on the ground. Jalen Hurts can run, but the Rams are hot. So I'm a little split on this game. Initially, I thought the Rams are going to have a really good shot. I really like Stafford in the playoffs. Puka Nacua is a guy that you can swing the ball out to, and he can become kind of like a 4x4 the way that he runs. So I think I would take the Rams from a betting standpoint. I would take Philly to win the game, but I think it's going to be close. And I think some of it's going to depend on what kind of weather we get, which it sounds like it's going to be cold and snowing.
Yeah. Is the right team favored in Bills Ravens?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I mean, why are the Bills I don't get this. I mean, Josh Allen to me looks like the best quarterback in the league this year. Bills are 8-0 at home. They're rolling. James Cook is a kind of a wild card factor because he's their running back, but he's coming off a 120-yard day. They haven't lost at home all year. The Ravens are totally a home cooking kind of a team.
No doubt.
And I know it's going to be cold, but to me, the Ravens only have one way to win. I think the Bills can win if they trail or if they lead. I think the Ravens can only win if they lead. If the Bills get a lead, it's game over. If you make Lamar Jackson throw the ball in the playoffs, he loses.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, they're like the Niners. They don't come back. For some weird reason, and I give Josh Allen a ton of credit. First of all, he's going to win MVP and should. He has carried this team on his back. They lose a lot of offensive players, and you think it's done, and they trade Diggs and all this. And for him to do what he's done with, I think, limited resources, don't get me wrong, they have some good players, but their defense has really stepped up. Like you said, at home, it's just going to be a bananas atmosphere. And for some weird reason, I think it's the Bills' year. And I think a Super Bowl, a really cool Super Bowl would be the Lions and the Bills, just two teams with, real long-suffering fan bases. But, you take more away from the Bills and they've become better. And it's just been, how you get a feel for a team and you just feel like it's their year. I just feel like it's the Bills' year, which means they'll probably get trampled. because that's how I do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I endorse a team wholeheartedly, and then it's like these blow up in front of our face. But no, I think it's the Bills' year, and I think that game's going to be close just because I have that much respect for Lamar. But you brought up a great point. From a playoff standpoint, you look at the Ravens, especially the last number of years, and they just haven't been able to get it done. You know, Lamar has not been as great in the playoffs as he's been in the past. There was no reason they shouldn't have won that game last year against Kansas City. They forgot to run the ball. And this year they won't do that with Derrick Henry. That's what it comes down to. And that's why they went and got Derrick Henry, because what was it like? I know Lamar ran a bunch of times against Kansas City, but it was like 6 plays to the running back or something last year when they lost that game to Kansas City. It was like, what are you doing? Like, how did John Harbaugh forget to run the ball? That's what you do. The Ravens just do weird things. They're not going to do that with Derrick Henry, but if they can stop Derrick Henry, which is huge, and make, as you said, Lamar a pure passer, it's going to be difficult for the Ravens to win.
It's going to be a quick stream for us today. Daniel Silvera, 2 supers here. Good morning.
We're good. We're good.
Okay, good. He says, Daniel Silvera says, good morning, John. Redskins plus 10. Let's eat. And we got this one from Brunson, who says, one reason Brock would not get $55 million is because the 49ers are probably the only ones who would pay him that much. That's speculation.
I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true either. I understand why you don't want to pay him, but being ignorant of the current market and the current market conditions is not a strategy. That's, as Billy Bean once said, hope is not a strategy. Hoping that somehow you can snap your fingers and that today's market won't apply to your quarterback, so you can pay him more what you want to pay him, which is 35 to 40 million instead of 50 to 55 to 60 million. I get it. I'm with all of you. I want to see a cheap quarterback so I can have a better team, but it's not the way it works, and I don't think that's the way it's going to come down.
I'm just looking at this right now. Dak Prescott makes 60. I think he's better than Dak Prescott. Trevor Lawrence makes 55. He's better than Trevor Lawrence. Jordan Love makes 55. He's better than Jordan Love. Burrow makes 55. He's not better than Burrow. Tua makes 53. He's better than him. Goff makes 53. I think Goff, to me, is what Purdy was last year. He's got all these weapons. All the weapons are healthy. Now Montgomery's coming back. I get it. But Jared Goff, when we saw him with the Rams or even early with the Lions, he didn't have the weapons and he wasn't great. So I kind of liken him to a Jared Goff. When he has everybody around him, he looks absolutely great. When he doesn't, he doesn't. Justin Herbert makes 52. Jalen Hurts makes 51. You're going to make more than those guys. Hurts signed that contract a couple years ago. Jalen Hurts is hot and cold. All those guys I just mentioned, whether you want to have this debate of whether he's better than them, whatever, he's the latest. And what works is he's in the realm of all those. He's in the group of those players that I just mentioned, and they're all making from $50 to $55 million. He's the latest. So what happens to the latest? They get paid more. It goes up every single year. It never goes down, and it never stays flat. So when Brock Purdy goes, when you're talking about Brock Purdy amongst his peers, there's no way in hell his agent, who again, he works for Brock, but he's not taking less than those quarterbacks. He just can't. I mean, I'm going to go down. Josh makes 43. Stafford makes 40. The only reason those guys do is because they signed those contracts years ago. When those guys are up, those guys are going to be at 65 and 70. So look, I get it. What people are saying, he's not as good or whatever the case may be. Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't the best quarterback when he was the highest paid, nor was Derek Carr. They were the latest. And that's how the game works. Good gets paid great because there's not enough quarterbacks to go around. It's a pure leverage discussion, and Brock's getting the money. And I agree with you. You don't want to pay great money. That's the way it works at that position. There's no leverage. If you say we're not paying Brock that, we're going to trade Brock. So is it going to be Darnold or Cousins or all the names that you just reeled off there? Is Kyle so confident and almost arrogant in his ability to be the great play caller and the great offense and everything that he thinks that he's going to take even a Daniel Jones, who I think has upside, or whomever, or whomever we mentioned, Zach Wilson, or throw a name in there, Mac Jones, and he's going to just take one of those guys and say, my system is so good we can win with anybody. That's not the way Kyle is operated. I just don't think I don't think he's going to take that kind of a chance with still a Super Bowl winning roster. He believes it is. I think we all do. They get healthy. They're going to be in the mix. You think that Kyle Shanahan at the most important position in the game is going to take that chance? And all you have to do is look at the quarterbacks left. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, Matthew Stafford, Jalen Hurts, whatever you think of those quarterbacks, they're all top 10 quarterbacks. And that's what's left in the game. There isn't some like, oh, there's an outlier. There's not an outlier quarterback in the remaining, unless you don't like CJ Stroud, but there's not an outlier quarterback in this group. Jalen, Daniels is going to win the Rookie of the Year. Second overall pick. All these guys are, high picks and great quarterbacks. And so some teams better have better defenses, offenses, special teams, whatever. There's one thing in common. All these teams that are left have a great quarterback. You got to have one.
No doubt. And then here's the thing. Is Brock that guy? Well, I think he is. We're going to find out in time. But I also say this. I think he needs to be challenged. So in my ideal quarterback room next year, I've got Brock Purdy signed to a reasonable contract. I would have a young up-and-coming quarterback like a Drew Lock, a Zach Wilson, somebody who's better than Brandon Allen, better than Josh Dobbs, somebody who's a real quarterback right there. Then I would go with Tanner Mordecai, and if I could find, a quarterback in the draft that I like to compete with Tanner Mordecai for that third spot, that's my ideal room. I'm saying goodbye to Dobbs, bye to Brandon Allen, re-signing Brock, bringing in a better veteran, because I believe in Brock, but at the same time, I really think that Brock's greatest thing is he's a competitor, and you got to have that guy sitting there who can beat him out or who can at least challenge him if he doesn't play well, so that you get the best out of Brock. Bill Walsh was a genius, right? He knew personnel, he knew football, but he knew people. And he knew that Joe Montana wanted no part of Steve Young sitting behind him. But he also knew that he'd get the best out of Joe if Steve were sitting there. And then he knew he'd get the best out of Steve with Joe right there. And he pitted them against each other, and it led to really the greatest stretch of 49er football ever. And nobody likes to compete for their job, but it's healthy to compete for your job. Competition is what this whole country has been formed on. And I just really believe that if you want the best out of Brock Purdy, pay him, support him, draft good players around him, build a offensive line that's a fortress, but then have another guy there to keep driving him so that you have that consistent competition. I think that's the way to go. That's how I'd go next year if I was.
Let me ask you this: if they pay Brock 55, do you have a problem with it? Do you think he's going to bounce back? I mean, my theory, like I said, is I think that Brock tried to do too much. I think that they lost offensive players, and he got out of his realm, which is Brock Purdy. And again, I liken it to Goff in Detroit. He has all these great players around him. He's able to get the ball out of his hands. He makes good decisions. He doesn't make stupid decisions. It's not about his athleticism. It's more about the mental side of things and reading it and getting rid of the football and doing the right things and making the right choices. That's what Brock did his first 2 years in the league. And now that he's up for a contract and didn't have quite the year that everybody thought he would have, I kind of assumed it, like Brock's going to have another great year. They're going to make the playoffs. He's going to prove it. They're going to give him the contract. Everybody's going to be cool with it. And now there's this big debate. I think he's going to bounce back. I think that with McCaffrey coming back and the receivers they'll have, I was going to say I have no doubt that they'll fix the offensive line, but I do. I think that's going to be really difficult to do in one off season. But if they are committed to it, I think they can do it. All you have to do is look at the Rams' offensive and defensive lines. They stole that directly from the 49ers. They got sick of getting punched in the face, and they made a concerted effort both on the offensive and defensive lines to draft and sign free agents to fortify that, despite the fact that they lost Aaron Donald on the D-line. The 49ers have to do that same thing. But do you have a problem with paying him? If it came down to it, are you cool with it? Do you think he'll bounce back?
I do think he'll bounce back. I do think I do think I would pay him that. I think he's your best option. He's your hardest worker. But to me, it's like, don't do it unless you're going to build up around him. Like, for example, let me just give you I know we're going to finish up here, but this is just one last thought here. The 49ers under Kyle Shanahan, since he's been with the 49ers, are 6-1 in the playoffs when they outrushed their opponent. 6-1 in the playoffs. So the Niners this year rush offense fell to 12th in the NFL, and they have Christian McCaffrey, J.P. Mason, Elijah Mitchell. I mean, their offensive line is not good. You got to build up your offensive line. I've studied this thing all day, every day. I've looked at the entire season in the All 22. I took 3 days and went through the entire All 22 for the entire season. Jake Brendel has got to go. And I hate to say that, but there are 32 starting centers in the NFL. He finished 18th with a pass blocking grade of 55.1 on 656 pass blocking snaps. He was the weak link of the 49ers offensive line. He allowed the 7th most pressures by any center in the league with 28. He allowed 22 hurries. He committed 10 penalties. 10 penalties. He was a Pro Bowl alternate. That was 3 freaking years ago. All right? They should have listened to me and gone with Zach Frazier instead of Ricky Pearsall, and they would have been a much better football team this year for it. Frazier was one of the best centers in pro football as a rookie. They got to get a center. And to me, there's a couple really good ones. The Texas center, Majors, really like him. There's a late-round center from Montana State named Marcus Ware, who's playing right tackle right now.
Yeah, I read a piece on him.
He's got a lot of talent. He's a brawler, tough guy. And then Drew Dahlman. Chris Dahlman's, remember, John, we had Chris Dahlman, the former Niner. He was the honorary captain. We had him in studio for one of the pregames.
Yeah, we had like the 3 offensive linemen in there. That was cool. Derek Deese, and yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, and I think Dahlman might be the principal of a school in Salinas or something like that. Anyway, but his son Drew played at Stanford as a phenomenal center. He's a free agent. He's run the same scheme in Atlanta. He's a really good player. The Niners have paid centers in the past, from Alex Mack to Weston Richburg. Drew Dahlman, I don't think they're going to be super active in the free agent market, but Drew Dahlman would make a lot of sense. So got to get a center. To me, the road grading guard in this draft is Tyler Booker from Alabama. Go look at him. He's just an absolute beast. And my favorite tackle in the draft is a guy from NC State named Anthony Belton.
Huge guy.
Who's 6'6", 335. There's also a guy named J.C. Davis who went to McClymonds High School, who played right tackle for Illinois this year. And Illinois had a really good team, and they ran the ball effectively. And this guy just absolutely bulldozes people. And he's an Oakland kid who went to McClymonds, as I said, and is really exciting. And he's probably a 5th-round offensive tackle, 4th-round offensive tackle. So there will be some okay guys there, but it's you're going to have to find a guard, a center, a tackle. You got to rebuild this offensive line. You got to get a big, powerful running back. You have to be able to run the ball in the low red zone. And I think this is a phenomenal year for tight ends. This is the year for the Niners to draft 2 tight ends. Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame is amazing. Harold Fannin from Bowling Green. Terrific.
He's going to be a mid-rounder. He's good.
Jalen Conyers, who was at ASU and transferred to Texas Tech. Yeah. He's a really good tight end. There's a bunch of really good tight ends. Caden Priestcorn from Ole Miss, really good tight end. There's a lot of them.
I wish they
could
get
yourself a couple tight ends in this draft.
I wish
this
they
is
had
the tight end draft.
I wish they had a lot of other positions set along the offensive and defensive line so they could go get like a Tyler Warren or Loveland, the kid out of Michigan. Those guys are probably going to both go in the first round, and I just don't think the 49ers can afford a tight end in the first round this year. But like you said, Fannin, the kid out of Bowling Green, had like 100 catches. And
he was amazing in the bowl game. He had like 14 catches in the bowl game.
So I hope that they're able to do something like that. By the way, a bunch of people, I don't know why they did this yesterday. I think I might have asked the question. You know how it is, like you're talking for so long, you forget what you say sometimes. And yesterday I was doing a show and somebody jumped in and said, you and Krug have got to do a draft show, So we'll definitely do it. Cause I've been just pouring
your channel will grow so much during the draft too. Because Johnny loves the draft like I love the draft.
I do. And I don't go into it. Like I'm
not as nutty
solid.
As me.
I'm pretty solid, like rounds 1 through 4 or something in that range. But like you take it over. Like it's so fun because you and I would do the draft show from 49ers HQ right next to the 49ers draft room, and then Kyle and John would come in. It was a lot of fun. They'd feed us steaks. I mean, it was the best day of the year. Big TV.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
We had such a great time. And so a bunch of other guys were with us depending on the year. But then one year, like we said, we did Saturday too, and we went deep into the draft and we talked about DJ Reed and he came on, but they had like a bunch of mid-rounders that they put on with us. And like I said, I got through the 4th round, I'm money, right? And then so we start getting to the deep rounds, and you were just like boom, 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 boom. It was like get out of town, man. It was so we just have a ton of fun, and people love it, and it's it's hope for the future. And look, the one thing is that's really fun about it is the first round you've got your fingers crossed because obviously they've done a great job with Bosa. We don't know about Pearsall. People want to give him credit for McGlinchey. He didn't get to a second contract, so I don't consider that a great pick. They've had one good first round pick in their history, John and Kyle. But from rounds 2 to 7, I mean, you can pick out like 2-3 guys from every single round where they've just crushed those rounds. So it's not only the first round. When you look at the teams right now, when you look at Detroit, when you look at the Rams, when you look at these teams that are up and coming and passing the 49ers, that's how they did it. They did it with like 2-3 drafts in a row. When the Niners were hitting, whether it be Harbaugh or whether it be under John and Kyle, it was, 2 and 3 rounds. Look at Seattle when they were in it against the Niners. It was 2 and 3 drafts in a row where they got like Sherman and Wagner and Wilson and Cam Chancellor. And it's like, that wasn't in the first round, Earl Thomas. They got those guys in about 2-3 drafts in a row. That's what you have to do. Like this year's draft looks great. This year's draft, give them a great grade, whatever you want to do. But it's these next 2 drafts that are going to determine whether this team is going to continue to stay in a window, and I think they are if they stay healthy, or go like this while the rest of the Rams, the Eagles, the Lions continue to ascend. It's massive.
And people say, "Oh, Krug, do you believe that John Lynch can do it?" Well, I mean, look at what they did last year. At the draft was over, they went upstairs. They guaranteed Evan Anderson $280,000. John, I've been covering this team for years. They've never spent anything close to $280,000 guaranteed on an undrafted player ever. But they did for Evan Anderson. And then in July, I had a chance to talk to Kasarik. I said, Chris, did you have a hand in him coming here? He said, absolutely. I pounded the table hard for him. The Niners guaranteed him a ton to keep him from going to Seattle. John Schneider really wanted him. And Chris was like, we fought and clawed for Evan Anderson. Evan Anderson is a ball player. I mean, that was a great addition. He's going to be a Niner for a number of years. So, on one hand, I want to say I've got total confidence in the front office. They found Purdy. They found DJ Jones, George Kittle, Afonga, Jawan Jennings, you name it. Lots of undrafted guys. On the other hand, they've absolutely effed up their first-round pick most of the time, and they can't continue if they want to win. So 2 things can be equally true, I guess. Let's finish with James Foster, who says, okay, he's doing this one. Player A, 2 sacks allowed, 6 penalties. Player B, 1 sack allowed, 6 penalties. Any guesses? Both are right tackles in the NFC, and one is in the playoffs. I don't know how I would guess that, but I would maybe guess one of those guys is Lane Johnson, maybe?
Probably.
That would be my guess. James, I don't know where to go on that one. We Markel Randall. Ever thought of trying to steal Jeff Stoutland from the Eagles? A stat came out that has produced the most Pro Bowls of any position coach in the NFL. A lot of times these guys hire their buddies, and sometimes guys get entrenched. They have families, their kids go to school. Sometimes there's reasons beyond the money or competitive reasons that a guy wants to stay in a certain market. So, but that's interesting. I hadn't realized that, and I'll kind of take a closer look at that. Thanks, Markel, for that one. That's going to do it for us. A big day of football ahead. I'm looking forward to some time on the couch. I'm going to hit Lenardi's, maybe do some grilling.
Nice.
Do some
Very
grilling.
Nice.
My sister's in town. We may from Connecticut.
Nice.
We may have a little dinner with her and her husband. So I'm looking forward to that. Haven't seen them in a while. Johnny, have a great Saturday, man. What do you got planned? You're going to be watching these games, I got to imagine.
Oh, yeah. What they start at 10:30. I'm going to do some short stuff. I want to talk about Suzuki going to the
one
Dodgers
today, I think.
then,
One.
Yeah. 1:30. Sorry, 1:30 for
1:30.
that. So we got a little bit of time before that. And like you said, what you just said sounds amazing. And then I know I have some stuff to do around the house. I know that it's Saturday, and my wife is like, it's cool that you do a Saturday show now, but you still got to do A, B, C, and D around the house. So I got the regular stuff. But you know how it is, man. You get the stuff done, and then you just veg on the couch the entire weekend. And I don't feel guilty about it at all. I'm just bummed out because a year ago at this time, you and I were getting ready at Levi's Stadium for Packers-Niners, and that comeback and Dre's interception and the missed field goal by Carlson, who was a kicker for the Niners this year. And I mean, that was just such a fun run last year to Vegas to have the divisional against the Packers and the comeback, and that we were so scared that they could run it, and they did. And James Jones down the sidelines and all that kind of stuff. There was just so many things. And then Detroit the next week. So it's cool. I'm excited. I guess you don't have to get your heart rate up as much as you would if the Niners were in it. And as much as I am going to enjoy these games fairly objectively, it does stink that a year ago you and I were sitting together in the booth there at Levi Stadium watching that great Packers-Niners game in the divisional, and right now we kind of don't have a horse in the race. It's kind of a bummer.
Oh, man. I tell you, when I came back to KMBR at the beginning of the football season, I had one thought and one thought in mind. John and I are going to be in the French Quarter in February.
I know.
For the Super Bowl.
The first time you and I were together in Super Bowl 47, we had the best time ever. Like it was so cool. We had
incredible.
We just had such a good group down there.
Write a book about that week.
Oh my God. New Orleans is easily, to me, the best place for a Super Bowl because everything is in walking distance. And even when you take the bus over for game day, that's a short, little trip from the French Quarter to the Superdome. And it's just the perfect place. And I don't know how New Orleans does it, but it was kind of like Vegas last year. The Super Bowl it gets kind of sucked up within it, and it's not that much space. But if you wanted to get away from it, you could go over to like Frenchman Street, and you wouldn't even know that the Super Bowl was happening. I mean, they just do such a good job. And then the NFL has whatever the eating experience is called, and the food that year was insane. So it's so much fun to be in New Orleans. And I know that they had the incident a couple of weeks ago, but man, that was to me, and you and I have been to a lot of Super Bowls. That to me is the best one. So I'm bummed. I will tell you this though. George is through Arizona State and Cronkite. He's actually going to be on Radio Row all week.
No way.
He just bought his ticket to New Orleans. He's never been there. And I'm just like, I just don't even know what
Who's
to
he
say.
going with?
He's going with like 3 other kids from ASU, and they go and they have a table on Radio Row. In fact, they had one last year, and I went on their show for a couple hours. Really good kids. And so he was on Radio Row in Arizona for us, kind of running around on like a Friday, helping us out, even though all he did was take selfies with like Pat McAfee and CJ Stroud. And he just ran around basically, and Chris Russo and in Arizona the year before. And all he did was, because he's down there, and all he did was take a bunch of selfies. And so I finally catch up to him and I go, you were supposed to help us. Like, you're supposed to be our guest runner. You know how it is down there. There's guests and you're wondering where they're going to be and, are you going to be late? What's going on? So he was supposed to be kind of our liaison to find out, okay, the next guest is so-and-so. Go find them on Radio Row and find out where they are. And lots of times they're talking to another station or something. But anyway, he was supposed to be that. I couldn't find him. And he comes back and he shows me his phone. He's got like 35 selfies with like everybody, Russo, Drew Brees, all the Brock Purdy, all these guys hanging around. He just goes, "Can I have a selfie?" So I'm like, yeah, that's cool and all, but you're supposed to be helping us. I got you a pass to help us. Right. So anyway, he's going to New Orleans. So I'm really jealous because, I mean, seriously, this is the first Super Bowl I haven't been to, I don't know, in 10 years. I mean, it's it sucks.
New Orleans is the best. You got to give him the full rundown. He's got to hit. He's got to hit Pat. You got to hit Pat O'Brien. He's got to hit.
And he just turned 21.
Coach Sean. Got to have some amazing dinners. Good. You got to go.
Yeah.
You got to go to that rotating bar that Pop took us to that one time. The thing that goes in a circle.
Yeah.
You got to hit the casino. You got to. You got to hit the oldest bar in the country is in the French Quarter. It doesn't even have doors. It was open during Katrina. New Orleans.
Bourbon Cowboys got to ride a bowl at the Bourbon Cowboy. Patty O'Brien's, like you said, he's got to get a hurricane there. He just turned 21 on January 3rd. I'm really scared for him because he's not like a big drinker or anything like that. But he likes to hang
get
around.
A beignet. Get a couple beignets. How great is a beignet?
Plus, his metabolism is like a bird, so like he can eat anything you want. Like not like me and you. Like it's like
we look at a beignet and put on 15 pounds. That guy could eat 12 of them and no sweat.
Eat anything. He could eat anything he wanted. I mean, it is such a fun place to go, and then to have it be like you said, Super Bowl week. I covered the Sugar Bowl there one year and was there for New Year's Eve. I mean, it's an insane place, but if you do it right. It is the perfect. It's like Vegas if you've never been there, but with food that is just out of this world, and then just this Southern charm to it. That is, I don't even know how to explain it. It is just so much fun, and it is like coming back from Vegas, like last year, like 10 days in Vegas, like we were last year, was insane. And New Orleans is like that, where you just pour yourself on the plane and you sleep for like 3 days. It's just it's like. Oh,
sometimes I'll be around my friends and they'll be like, "Hey, have you ever, traveled the globe?" And I'm like, "No, but I've been in New Orleans."
That's
Does
as
that matter?
European as it gets. You know what I mean? In the U.S.
Have
I mean,
you traveled internationally? No, but I've been to New
yeah.
Orleans.
It's insane.
I've been to Mexico. I've been to Canada. Johnny, good stuff. Everybody
Right,
give
man.
John a like and subscribe. Help him build up
Appreciate
his
you.
channel. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Sharp Corners. Thanks to our good friends at Mancini's. Dusty Gold. They picked Larry off the streets.
Oh, yeah,
my
I was
God.
there.
I mean,
I was there. You were the best behaved of everybody. Believe me.
It was unbelievable.
Papa was out of control. Chris Townsend was
Downey.
out of control.
It was a great time.
You
though.
know.
I did a 9 a.m. to noon show Pacific, which is 11 to 2 p.m. Central,
It was
which is
perfect.
absolutely the perfect time if you have to work in New Orleans during Super Bowl week. You
It
want
was
to
it.
work between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. That is the quiet time in New Orleans.
It is crazy. It's so much fun. So yeah, I'm jealous of him that I'm not going this year because it's like, come on, for what for the Super Bowl you're gonna miss. I mean, I think I've probably done 14 of the last 15, and to miss this one it's heartbreaking. Like I could have missed Indy, I could have missed Detroit, I could have missed but no, it's New Orleans this year. So
I
anyway,
know.
whatever.
Damn you, Niners.
I know.
I blame you, Jake Moody. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I do.
All right, that does it for us. Have a great Saturday, everybody. Appreciate John. Appreciate all of you guys. Make sure you give John a like and subscribe. Help him build his channel. He's going to have great things on his channel all throughout the year, all leading into the draft. You won't want to miss any of it. Go hit a like. Go hit a subscribe. Support the man. Have a great Saturday, everybody. Hope your bets all hit. I'm going to go barbecue. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Can't